Welcome back to Rooted. We are so glad that you're joining us. And today I have my good friend Natalie Stary with me here on the Rooted couch. I hope you guys have had a chance to meet Natalie and her husband Tim. Tim is our interim college pastor. And if you have ever seen him, you actually can see him over a crowd because he's 6'7". He's a gigantic man. And as you can see, Natalie is not.
5'2".
So it's a good pairing. But anyway, we are so glad that they are at our church, and they have two beautiful girls who kind of trail along, and some of them think they're actually in college, even though Emma's only 8,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And then they have Olivia, who they affectionately call Cookie. And I'm just so glad Natalie is here, and I'd love for you guys to get to know her better. So we're just going to kind of talk through who she is, and then we're just going to get into some funny stories, because you can't have a 5-minute conversation without Natalie without laughing. So at some point, I know that's going to come up in the conversation. But Natalie, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And so just tell us a little bit. We always kind of start out just where you're from, your family of origin, all
Yes.
those kind of good things.
Okay, so I am kind of a townie. I'm from Seymour, so like an hour away from here is where I grew up. And my parents were high school sweethearts in Seymour and grew up there. So I always joke that I don't need Ancestry.com. I literally go to the cemetery and everybody.
Your whole family's there?
They're there.
It's where
yes.
the reunions take
Yes.
place in the
And
cemetery.
my high school chemistry teacher dated my aunt. You know, it was one of those kind of
Yeah,
yes.
we are now in Holiday, and we kind of have that same
Yes.
experience out there.
Yes.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. So
Awesome. And so where did you go to college or to go to high school in Seymour?
I did.
Okay.
I
And then
did.
where did you go after that?
I went to college in Brownwood at Howard Payne.
Okay.
I felt in high school I felt called to ministry, so I followed that to Howard Payne and studied ministry there.
Awesome. And then the next step was, of course, so tell me this, did you go to grad school right after undergraduate?
I did not.
Okay. You went into ministry.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, because this is a fun story.
Yes. So I went, I didn't really know, because I grew up in a really small town and all the ministers in my town were boys. So I didn't really know any girls.
A girl ministry job.
I didn't know that
Yeah.
that was totally a thing, but I felt like the Lord was calling me to that. And so I, went on to university, to college, and studied, and found out there were girls in ministry. There were opportunities for females in ministry. And after I graduated, I actually moved to Dallas, and I worked for a mission sending organization that partners with the IMB.
Okay.
And so we would coordinate trips for high school students in the summer to go partner with IMB missionaries all over the world. So I got paid to travel all over the world and take high school kids to IMB missionaries. So I spent a lot of my time in Europe and working with Turkish Muslims in Europe, and then another big chunk of time in Asia, particularly in Japan.
So interesting. I mean, who would have ever thought a little girl from Seymour, Texas would have that opportunity, and you were in your early 20s at this point, right?
Yeah.
Little short blonde cutie,
Yeah.
bebopping all over the world.
Yeah. Went all over China by myself. That was quite an adventure.
Yeah, talk about the big wall, the Great Wall there, right?
Yes.
I just called it the big wall.
The big wall.
That's so terrible. I really
You're
do
from
know
Holiday.
that. Not from Holiday, but there is a Great Wall. I know it's not just big. But so tell us a story about the Great Wall.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to fly a girl, her parents didn't want her to fly by herself, and we were taking her to join the IMB missionaries, and she was going to go do a semester in China, and they wanted someone to fly with them. And so the company that I work for said, hey, you're a single girl, fly her over to China. We went to Beijing, and then from Beijing we got on another plane. Basically, it would be the equivalent of flying to Dallas and then getting on a plane to Abilene.
Okay.
Very rural. And then we got on a bus with some chickens on it, and then went 3 hours into the mountains of China. And she did not have blonde hair. I had blonde hair at the time, and but we were the only people who looked anything like us on the bus, and we kind of felt like pandas at the zoo, because we were way off the tourist path at that point.
I'm sure.
The chickens were in a bag, and their heads popped out of little holes. didn't know that's how you carry chickens, but that's the efficient way apparently.
Obviously.
So we like went out and we like left her in China, hung out for Chinese New Year's, and then I hadn't really processed, I don't think, the fact that I was gonna have to fly back by myself. P.S. Don't speak any like.
Yeah, I was thinking you're gonna have to get back there then with the chicken bus and everything by
because we sort of had
yourself.
like an IMB missionary that sort of helped get us there, but on the way back I was totally like on my own. And I was going, so I sort of just learned like ni hao and shay shay and pointed at everything, which is like hello and thank you.
Yeah.
And just point, along the way. And it was cool though because I had had a backpack and that's all I took. My backpack had a Texas flag, like I put patches on my backpack, and my backpack had a Texas flag on it. And at one random hotel I was at, I found some Americans who kept staring at me, and they saw my Texas flag, and so they were like, "Are you from Texas?" We started talking, and they actually were. It was a pastor and some of his staff from a church who were coming to look to partner with some underground churches. So we like prayed in the middle of this hotel room in China by ourselves. It was
Totally the
crazy.
Lord.
It was totally the Lord. Totally Lord. But I had this great. I got back to this hotel in Beijing, and I had this thought like I should get in a taxi cab and like drive to the Great Wall because it's just like there, And then I was like, I'm too tired. I'll get you the next time. Never been back to China
I was like
since then.
15, 20 years later.
Yeah, so I'm like, probably should have went in China to see the wall, but no, I was like, that's good, not a big deal.
Next time, I'm sure I'll be back.
So it's on the list for next time.
Yeah, perfect. I love you're like, I'm too tired to see this wall.
Yeah,
I'm spent. Okay,
Can't be that big of a deal.
Fortunately, it's a big wall. So fortunately, so you got through the chickens and got through all the fun traveling and stuff, and then you landed in grad school.
Yes.
Right? And that's where you met Tim.
Yes.
Okay, so where did you guys go to grad school and how did that all happen?
Yes, so I was about 27, 28, and sort of was at that point in my life where I was like, well, I'm not getting married, and all my roommates kept getting married, so I was like, might as well go to grad school,
Sure.
Why not?
And get smarter.
Might as well not do anything else in my life. And so I had been at Hard Pain, and Tim is actually 4 years younger than I am. So we figured out on our very first date that when I was a senior in the high school, he was in the 8th grade.
Kind of creepy.
He brought that one up. I was like, this is not how to win this date over.
First of all, you show up and you're like a foot and a half taller than I am.
Super awkward.
And now you're 4 years younger than me, and now I feel weird and awkward. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So you pressed into that then.
Yeah, we survived. But so I decided when I was like 27, 28, like I think I'm going to go back and work my master's in theology. And at that time, Howard Payne offered a program where you could come for like 1 week of class. It was modular, and then you did everything else like remotely.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And so I lived in Dallas at the time, so I was like, I already know these professors. This is great. I'll go back, do this and that. And Tim has 4 years younger than I am. He had gone to Howard Payne as well, but not at the same time. So like I graduated from college and he started the following fall as a freshman. And so
which is probably good. If you were graduated from college and this kid comes in as a freshman, you're like
never gonna happen.
Yeah.
So we sort of knew some of the like people who were younger than me and older than him. We kind of had some of the same friends.
Okay.
And he actually dated a really good friend of mine. And so I kind of sort of remember she dated a tall guy, but that was about it.
Yeah.
So I went back working on my master's. At that same time, he was a youth pastor at a little church in Brownwood, and he was working on his master's, and we met in this class. And I remember texting my roommate at the time, and I was like, yeah, there's this guy, he keeps staring at me in the class. It's kind of weird. Like I can feel him like making eyes at me. So anyway, but he never asked for my number or anything. So I left that class, and I was like, well, weird guy staring at me. I don't know. And we took another class together at New Orleans Seminary. And when New Orleans, the way that he decided to get my number was that he, this was like back in the day when iPhones like barely had come out. They didn't have like passcodes on them or anything.
Okay.
So we're in this New Orleans Seminary class, and there's like doctoral students in here. I mean, this is like a for real deal, like serious class. And we had a break, and I went to go like get a Coke or whatever. And when I came back, we started, the professor started lecturing, and this phone starts ringing. And everyone's staring at me, and I'm like, that's not my phone. That's not my ringtone. Like physically, I'm saying like, it's not my ringtone. And everyone's just staring at me. Finally, I pick up my phone. It is my phone ringing, and it's some random number I don't know. And while I had gone out for the break time, whatever, one of the guys in the class I knew really well, and he had my number. So he and Tim had this plan. They got my phone, they changed the ringtone, and Tim called me, got my number from this other guy, and totally embarrassed me in the class. And
that's a whole scheme. Like, that's not just like an easy plan.
Yeah, and then later on he was like, oh, hey, that was me calling you. Do you want to go on a date with me?
Like, I don't even know how to answer that.
Like, this is like 3 strikes. You're like too tall, you're too young, and you publicly embarrassed me to get my
exactly.
number. So.
Exactly. Let's spend forever together.
Yes. Clearly it worked out though.
Clearly it was great. Okay, so how did that happen? I mean, how did you guys start to really connect?
He was in Brownwood at like a small country church as a youth pastor.
And did he want to do youth mission or youth ministry, or where did he kind of feel called?
Yeah, he just knew it was called a ministry, you know, and didn't, whatever the Lord opened up, you know. And so he was working as a youth pastor, because usually when you're right out of college, that's where you go.
Absolutely, because you can keep those hours, you know.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You get too old after a while.
Exactly.
So he was there. I was in Dallas. And it really what sealed the deal, this is like a tip for all guys, this is for you, is that he called me and he said, hey, I'd like to come to Dallas and take you on a date. And I remember telling my roommate at the time, I'm like, oh my goodness, he said date, like D-A-T-E. Not like, hey, let's get coffee let's hang. Mm-hmm. Like, you never know the intentions. He like laid it out. And I was super impressed that he, like from the very beginning, was like, I want to take you on a date.
I want to be intentional.
Yes. And I was like, all right.
And that was how many years ago?
11. We just celebrated our 11th wedding anniversary. So that would have been more than 11. But yeah, 11 years later.
Okay, and then you've got 2 girls.
We have 2 girls, Emma, who's 8, and Olivia, who's 4, who we call Cookie. And
so
she's
cute. And why Cookie?
Because when she was first learning to walk, you know, like toddle, we would be like, Olivia, nothing. But if you would say Cookie, she would come and get a cookie from you. And her and the dog both come at Cookie.
I don't know what that says, but that's great.
And it just sort of stuck.
Yeah.
And so she's been Cookie. Even at preschool, everyone calls her Cookie.
Calls her Cookie.
Yeah, everywhere she goes.
I love that. That's awesome. So, okay, so then you guys eventually ended up in Waco.
We did.
Right before you moved here.
Yes.
And then moving here, what do you do now? Because I know that you've kind of done ministry things, and now you're actually in a job that's not considered ministry vocationally, but is such a great opportunity for you.
Yes. So Tim and I, we both, you know, felt called into ministry. We both worked in full-time ministry jobs when we got married. And to find 2 ministry jobs in one town can be really difficult. And so we kind of just trusted the Lord with like whatever journey he takes us on, that's where we'll go. And you know, preachers and coaches move around a lot. So we sort of just were obedient to the Lord for the different places that he called us to in our journey. And about 3 years ago, we felt sort of led to come back to Wichita Falls. And
which is a pseudo home for you,
It was
it's a comfort zone.
Tim is originally from Kerrville, and so like by Fredericksburg. So it was a little bit more of a stretch for him, because he was like, "Where's the hill country? Where's the trees?
Where's anything alive and beautiful?"
Yeah, where is the Mexican food? You know,
right? Absolutely.
You know, being near San Antonio, and so, but yeah, we just kind of came and felt obedient to the Lord, and I took a job at the hospital. And I work helping recruit physicians to Wichita Falls, which is kind of a weird job. Before I took this job, I didn't like hospitals or doctors. I try to stay away from all of those type of medical things.
Right.
But it has turned out to be one of my favorite jobs I've ever had. And I feel like it's just my ministry and what the Lord's called me to, because I get to love on these families as they come to town. And I get to help bring them to Wichita Falls, first of all, physicians and their families, and then just get to help them with, you would not imagine, like get their mail, mow their grass, like help find preschools.
Do baby showers. We've done baby showers together when they first move here and they're pregnant and they're going, I'm about to have a baby. Great, let's give you some great baby shower.
Yes,
so all those kind of fun things.
We just get to love on these families, and it's just been one of the biggest blessings in my life, and I love it. And so many of them, they come and they don't really have any family here, and they come from all over the world. They have very unique stories. So my passion for missions just really lines up with that, because I love interacting with people from other countries and other places. And it's just amazing. I love it every day, and I love going to work every day.
And I love that, because you just see more and more how the Lord just uses your talents and giftings, regardless if it's vocational ministry or not, to be able to connect with people. So you have this heart to go to the world and to, talk about buses with chickens on them.
Yes.
And now people that are coming here may well be riding on those buses with chickens on them, and just how the Lord continues to just give you opportunities in the places He's called you, even when it doesn't look like church work.
It's true.
Just how awesome that is.
And, I really felt like before I went to work there that I really only knew church people. My husband was on staff. I helped. The people I hung out with were like my life group people. My kids went to preschool at the church. Like, I did not know anybody outside of my church,
right?
Which is amazing to have those deep relationships. But you also think, like, okay, God's called us to be on mission. God's called us to like pour into other people's lives,
absolutely,
and to share the gospel with other people. And this has given me a platform to know all kinds of people from all over the place, and all sorts of faith and no faith, and to know them in a personal way, where they have my cell phone number and I have their cell phone number, and they call me when they need things and I reach out to them. And, it's a very natural, organic relationship that we have. And in those organic relationships, I get to tell them, like, oh yeah, we go to First Baptist. I can't do that Wednesday night because I have church or Sunday.
Just introducing that as part of your life.
Yeah.
And part of the things that you do.
Yeah.
I think that's so funny. I still just get a kick out of just talking to you about all the things that you've done in your life. You did girls ministry before.
Yes.
Before marrying Tim, and I love that passion that you have to minister to girls.
Yeah.
And I still think it'll be fun to see as your girls grow, just how the Lord opens those doors to minister specifically to, your girls and their friends. And anyway, so
I may have put temporary pink hair dye in our 8-year-old's hair this morning. That Tim didn't really know about until he came home at lunch, and he was like, "Is that pink in her hair?" I'm like,
possibly, but it's temporary.
It'll wash out.
Fine.
It's gonna be fine.
It's great.
We're not even going to school in the fall. It's good. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, so my 15-year-old, my 18-year-old paid my 15-year-old $50 to shave his head during quarantine, and then the next day is when Governor Abbott made the announcement that everything was opening back up.
Oh no!
So he is bald, and then we find out, just kidding, you're going to church this week. And he's like, I have to go to church, I have no hair. I'm like, surprise! It's great. It's just the things that you do.
Did he get the $50 though?
He did get the $50.
Oh, see?
Yeah.
At least he's a man of his word.
I know.
He paid him up.
Yep, he paid him up, and he didn't at first, so then we started adding $10 a day.
Oh, yeah.
And then the payment came pretty quickly.
Yeah, that quarantine cut, though, that's like a thing.
I know.
We definitely have done some of our own
we went kind of from a mullet to not. So it was interesting. But then I forgot, because I have my 18-year-old's graduating. So now we're going to be taking family pictures. So those are the things you kind of forget about when you're in quarantine. You've got quarantine brain. I'm like, oh, we're not graduating, so we won't need to take pictures. Just kidding. But so anyway, so maybe pink would be that same thing.
Not? Yeah.
It's not I think the shaved head's not quite so temporary, but anyway. So I asked you just some funny questions just for people to kind of get to know you. Cleaning.
Oh, yeah.
We always talk about, which would you clean first? Would you clean your car? Would you clean your desk, or would you clean your room? What's your go-to?
By default, would have to clean my car first, because I put doctors in my car almost every single day. So my kids know, like, oh, there's a doctor in your car. Okay, like, they have to get the goldfish out,
right?
And like the socks. And normally when we're not in quarantine, it's like the soccer cleats and the whatever that normally your kids like.
Because you're living in your car.
Yeah, and I'm like, I have a doctor. Get this all out of my car. So they just know.
Yeah.
And then I'm like Febrezing everywhere.
Perfect. That's great. Okay, what about living on a desert? Not living. I don't want to live, because we want you to come back. So if you were to spend a couple weeks on a deserted island, this was super funny. What did you say?
Well, I said one that practically Tim would have to stay home with our children. So, because
that's a good practical, like, not my husband, but not because I wouldn't want to spend time with him. He just has to care for the child.
It's a month.
The children.
I mean, that's a lot to ask anyone to watch, you know, Cookie.
Right. Right.
She's kind of crazy. And
I wonder where she gets it from.
Yeah, I don't know. So I said, yeah, by default, he would have to stay home. Sorry, Tim.
Yeah.
And then I was really like, because I'm a people person, I couldn't just pick one. So I asked, I thought maybe I should be able to have my phone or a laptop that I could like FaceTime.
Absolutely. And unlimited power supply. You can talk to anyone you wanted to.
Anybody. I'll talk to everyone all the time.
And then do some podcasts, right?
Yes,
when you were tired of talking to people.
Listen to some podcasts.
Yeah.
It sounds great. I'm in.
Let's do it. It does. That's hilarious. So let me ask you a question now. We didn't really talk about this beforehand, but as you look towards the future, and I know, none of us obviously know, no one would have ever expected what we've gone through in the last couple months, 4 months ago. But as you look towards the future and just you feel the call that you feel like you have on your life and Tim has on his life, where do you see, or what would be something that you would love to kind of walk forward in?
Oh, that's so good. I recently, professionally, I took the role as the director over all physician recruitment and all physician kind of retention and stuff. And so I have a lot of like goals for that moving forward.
Yeah.
As far as just where that department's going to go and stuff. But in my personal life, I think Tim and I, we dream a lot about just like college ministry and the students here at MSU and at Vernon and even at the base, and just the possibilities of what God can do in the lives of these students. Because for us, those college years were so formative in just our faith and who we were, really outside of our parents and their faith, and really beginning to grow and own that. And there's just an untapped well here, I think,
I agree.
of so many college students that are not reached for the gospel. And so we dream a lot about that going forward, that, God would use us for whatever time He has us here with these students. And it's been really hard because they all, quarantined and left us.
I know. Your ministry has had the biggest hit because everyone just took off,
Poof, overnight, everyone was gone. But, it's been really fun because even this week we've started texting some of them like, hey, we think we're going to be able to start getting together. And they're like, yes, when? Let's do that,
Right.
And so, a lot of just dreaming about what God would do, if we're just faithful and obedient in the days to come. Almost a sense of like a great awakening could happen here amongst these students. And what the great thing about college students is they're here, but then they disperse all over the world.
It's a total mission field.
Yeah. So if these students take hold of the gospel and it just entrenches in their hearts and their lives, like as they go into the workforce, as they go into marriages, as they go into ministry, then that just expands tenfold. And so we're just grateful for the time that we get and excited to see what God's going to do with them in the future.
Absolutely. And I think we see that. And I think, I hope those that are watching are so encouraged, because this is the staff that you have. This is the staff that's working with our college group and our young military men and women, and just people that are kind of on the threshold of their life in a way. They're going to maybe be here for a period of time, and then they're going to launch.
Yeah.
And just where that launch can reach, and of course they can multiply so much better than we can.
Yes.
And so that's so exciting to see. Now, we talked a little bit about myths of ministry.
Yeah.
And I know that you guys have personally and together as a couple walked through just, hard seasons of life.
Yeah.
So what would be a myth of ministry that you would want to just talk about a little bit for people who maybe look in on what we call this fishbowl of ministry and think everything is perfect, or they totally get it, or they always have it right? How would you address that?
Oh, yes. Okay. So I would just say my family is like a hot mess express on a daily basis, and just come ride to church with us any given Sunday. And you'll know that we're just like everyone else's family, and we can't find our shoes, and we can't get out of the car, and we're like yelling to get in the car to go, and we're just real people that have real struggles, and, and just 100% are just like everyone else.
And I think what you get with you guys. You don't hide anything.
No.
I think you're honest and you're vulnerable with people, and I think people can see that.
Yeah.
And I think when you walk that out in ministry, it draws people, because
Yeah.
they see the real you,
Yeah.
you know?
And Tim and I in our life have we don't have time today. Part 2, we'll talk about it. We've weathered some pretty big storms in our marriage and in our life. And I think for a long time we did feel that pressure that like, okay, well, we like are on staff, so people can't know about our problems. People can't know about what's going on with us. But we really, we came to the point when we were like, when we get honest and real, we let that light in, then God is able to use that tenfold, because other people go like, oh, you're messed up too? All right, and like perfect people are not required. Like just people who are willing to be obedient is all it takes. And God can use that in incredible ways in your life and in the lives of others.
Yeah, and I love that you said that when you let the light in, because I think it's in those secrets, that's where darkness hangs. Mm-hmm. And that's where it feels like it has so much power.
Yeah.
And so I know those that are listening to you can really just get a hold of times where they wanted to keep things in secret, but when they brought them into the light, just how much healing happens, and how much transformation happens, and how much community happens.
Yes.
So, and I think you guys are such a testimony to that. Yeah. And I do hope sometime you'll get to hear more of their story, just because I think it's really encouraging and it's transparent and it's real, and I think those are important things. Okay, so as we end our time, we always ask the last question, and I think, like you said, you guys have weathered storms, marriage, personally, before you were married, growing up, through school, but there has always been something that has rooted you, that has carried you, that has sustained you. So I just wanted you to share with everyone kind of what that was.
Yeah. So we walked through some pretty dark times in our last seasons of life, and the thing that really carried me through that over and over again, I was just reminded that I'm just anchored in the Lord, and if it had not been for the Lord during that season of life, I would not have made it. Honestly, like I wouldn't have made it for my kids. I wouldn't have made it. Like the Lord was the only thing. When you in the dark night of the soul kind of place where you are, where it's dark, you can't see the future, you can't see what's going to come, you don't know like where the light at the end of the tunnel is. The gospel is there and Jesus is there, and that literally is the only thing that carried us through, and carried our marriage through, and carried anything through, was basically just getting in God's word and just listening to the Holy Spirit. And not listening to other people, and not listening, there's that great quote about how you shouldn't listen to yourself, you should talk to yourself,
Right.
So when you have those like negative thought patterns and negative things, like just speaking truth over that. And I found myself over and over again just being anchored in God's word when I did not know like what tomorrow was going to look like. And even times where like I did not know if I could like buy a gallon of milk at the store and if there was any money in our account to do it. But God like walked us through that time and was so incredibly faithful. And I'm grateful for that season because it drew me to an intimacy with the Lord and just dependence on Him that I did not know before. Right. Through that suffering, just came just an intimacy with Him that I'm grateful for, that He revealed Himself to me in such ways that probably had I not been through that, I wouldn't have known. So yeah. My faith is the thing in Jesus and getting in His word.
Well, and I think that's so good. I'm reading through Psalms right now, and to be honest, sometimes when I read Psalms, I get a little lost. I'm like, oh, yes, it's kind of the same thing over and over and over again. But the more I just see it, I just see that this is David just taking his heartfelt pleas to the Lord over and over and over, and God continues to answer him. And he'll come out and he'll just, almost in a way, verbally vomit all of his hard things, all the things when his life has dropped out.
Oh, yeah.
And yet he
and then that one where he talks about, like, my tears are on the couch.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah,
I've been there. I have been there. Absolutely. And it's just so good because it's such a good example to us that we can pour out our good and our bad to the Lord, and He is there for us. And that is what roots us. So Natalie, thank you for being here. Guys, I know that you enjoyed this time with Natalie. And like I said, catch her in the hallway. She'll talk your ear off. It'll be a fun time. And just look for Tim. You can just like look above everyone. He kind of rivals Zach Rhodes.
I know. They could be like brothers,
They could.
I think.
I'd like to see them play basketball maybe.
Yes. They did do like a height check one day.
I bet Tim's taller, right? Because I think Zach's 6'5". Anyway, guys, it was so good to see you. We'll see you next time.